Hey, guys, and welcome to another WFM Tipsy Thursdays. I am your host, Juanita Coley, affectionately known as the Contact Center Whisperer. And this week we are talking about ABN, abandonment. And we have expert guests with us. Yes. Y'all know this year we're doing all expert guests. Okay. So we have expert guests with us, Irena. Irena, thank you so much for joining us this week and talking about abandonment. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and where are you from?
Hey everyone, and first of all, thank you, Juanita, so much for inviting me. It's always a pleasure talking to you. And as you know, I'm a huge fan of yours. So any chance that I have to be talking to you, I'm taking it. So thank you again. But as you mentioned, my name is Irena, and I'm originally from Bulgaria, but I am currently living in the Netherlands. Freshly married since 3 months. I hope I got it right, otherwise, my husband is gonna kill me. So, yes, freshly married, and my whole background is in workforce management. I just started my own consulting company called Right WFM, and I am literally trying to follow your steps, Juanita, because you're absolutely incredible. So,
Well, we're going to
just
follow each other's steps, all right? We're going to follow each other's steps. I'm super excited to have you all the way from the Netherlands. Like, come on now, all right? We global. We're around the world, okay? So thank you so much for joining us this week or joining me this week. I always count it such an honor and a pleasure when I get to engage and talk to fellow WFM lovers, like because people not waking up saying, "Oh, I want to be in workforce management," right? Like, so I'm always interested in people's journey and their path, but we're gonna hop right into this week's topic, and we're gonna have to bring you back for like just all the, because the people know I will talk. I will talk for forever. Okay, so
we know I'll listen. We know that.
hey, if you guys are tuning in, leave us a comment in the chat, all right? Let us know where you're listening in from, and also let us know the next topic you want to cover on Tipsy Thursdays, WFM Tipsy Thursdays. Okay, that's the housekeeping. Thank y'all for joining. So now listen, abandonment. In your own words, tell us what is abandonment. Okay, we see this, in workforce management, we have these acronyms all the times, right? 3-letter acronyms, ABN, HTFCR, all the different things. So in your own words, tell us what is ABN? What is abandonment?
Oh, so the usual answer that I'm gonna give you is, this is the percentage of calls that drop off the line before they have the possibility to speak to an agent. However, maybe I'm gonna describe it to how many people we're willing to upset by not handling them and by not having the chance to talk to us to resolve their issues or answer their questions.
Why do you think abandonment, why is this such an important thing for us to, one, classify, and what do you think causes abandonment?
There are so many reasons to cause abandonment. And first of all, I think the competition right now, we live in a world where it's absolutely severe. So every single customer counts. And the conversation in contact centers is always about cost. So in some industries, it is okay to aim for 100% service calls, like for example 911 emergency. You can't afford to have abandonment rate.
Yeah,
But
we want them to answer.
we don't want to go to this direction, right? But from a commercial aspect, we always have to balance cost versus, how many people we can answer at least immediately. And you know what? There are so many things that goes into abandonment. For example, I take that you can be understaffed. You can be very well staffed, but your scheduling can be not very well done. So you can be
Mm.
scheduling in the wrong interval. So technically, you have the right amount of resource, but you're not utilizing them as they should.
That's a nugget, right? You can have the right amount of people, but they're in the wrong place. All right, sorry. Y'all know you get me to preaching in a second. Okay, go ahead. So what are some other reasons that causes abandonment?
You know what? Just to have a step back on this one thing that I have seen from my experience is that we have a lot of individual agreements that are happening during recruitment phase. So,
Mm.
for example, we're telling our HR team, we need someone to work this line, and they're recruiting the person. It's 40 hours, but they say, okay, I need to pick up my child, so I'm only available in the morning. I can never do late shifts.
Hmm.
So we schedule the people, and we know we don't have the people actually. So individual agreements is something that everyone would need to look after during the recruitment phase. But one thing that it's actually not really well understood is, what do you mean by abandonment? So we already said that those are the calls that drop off. I've seen organizations that are counting calls that are dropped off during IVR time. So we never had the possibility to service these customers. And it's technically a lost call, but it's also customer decision before the time we have the chance to help them.
Yes, I so love that you went there because we talk about that in this week's blog, right? Like we got to actually, a lot of times we call an abandonment or abandoned call. Oh, it didn't, the agent didn't answer, right? But it was in the IVR for 3 seconds, right? Like they barely selected a prompt. Can we really, count that as an abandoned call, right? So I think that that's so key. And this is why we have the expert series. You see what I'm saying? Because, we be out here in these call centers and as operational leaders and as executives just making up stuff, right? Or having these blogs that are talking about, especially from a technology perspective, classifying things. And it's like, no, you need to really talk to an actual expert. So thank you so much for drilling in on that point. I was like, I wonder if she's going to get there. No. So go ahead. Okay. So we have the right people in the right place. I mean, we have the right people or the right amount of people, but sometimes they're not in the right place. Right. But then you also talk through some of these pre-agreements, right? Around like, hey, which, I'm all for making sure from an HR perspective, because this is where I talk about cross-functional, working with marketing, working with HR, working with these different departments to really understand the business operations and what their priorities are. Because as workforce management, our customer, right, is the business. We need to make sure that we have the right people in the right place at the right time, but we also have to understand the different functions of the business and how they're functioning. However, right, our job is really to be an advisor. So when we're reaching out to HR and saying, hey, we need these roles, or these positions, we have to really be clear on the ramifications of costs and of the hours that we need people. So I love that you talk through that, right? If you're going to have these sidebar deals, right, then we need to talk about the impacts to that, and then we need to hire in other roles, and then we need to articulate what that cost is going to be. Hey, you want to be flexible here? No problem. This is the cost to that flexibility, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's okay. What about you?
I absolutely love that you elaborated on this one, because there should be an alignment. We're not saying it's necessarily a bad thing. It becomes bad if somebody is not informed, because, we have agents that are already working in that environment, and they would need to take the impact of someone else stepping in on a later stage with some individual agreement in place. So how do we explain that to them? You would always have to work Friday nights. You would always have to work on Saturdays just because someone came 5 years in the organization after you, but just made an agreement with HR and we were not even informed. So, and on the back of that, we can talk about attrition, because at some point we might have the right amount of people, but they're new, so they would take longer time to service or answer customer inquiries. And what do we do with that? We do have the right amount of people. They're not senior enough yet. They're just being through onboarding. So it's a lot of implications that can come that can cost actually abandonment. And one more thing, because we touched on the IVR, I am not seeing a lot of people talking about the short abandoned or understanding what short abandoned means. And in a lot of technology, this is pretty excluded from the calculations, but not many people understand why they should use it, how they should use it, should they even use it, and what does it mean. So I would say that the process behind your technology and how you work, it needs to be very clearly organized.
I love the short abandoned one. So that was my third one that I was going to say that I love that you brought up. I love that you brought that up, because that is understanding that critical piece can really determine, okay, do I need to make IVR routing changes? Do I need to make skilling changes? How do I need to, it has so many trickle down impacts, and really speaking with an expert who understands what to look for, right, is going to be important, because it's not just, oh, okay, your abandonment is 3%, is 10%, we need to get this down. It's like, hey, let's look at this data, like you suggested, right? Like, hey, this is coming into the IVR and we notice that it's 1 second. It's 2 seconds, and then it's dropping off. It's not like it's going into the IVR and hitting these prompts and going here and then waiting for 10 seconds or waiting for 30 seconds or 60 seconds and then abandoning. That's probably a true abandon, but it's not making it there. So really having someone look at that data and being able to tell is going to be critical to what now your strategy is or what your response, because many times in workforce management, we're reacting when we should be responding, right? And don't get me I saw, like it's a whole preach moment, because, I'll go down that path. So, okay, let's move on. What are some tips or strategies that you've seen or that you would recommend as it relates to managing or identifying short abandons? What are some and managing abandonment? What are some tips and strategies?
I would say my general tip would be understand your technology. Don't assume you know how your technology works, because if we make a cross or a bridge to service level, I have spoken to so many people in organization telling me, of course, I know how my service level is calculated. And then we go into their technology and it's exactly the opposite of how they assume it's calculated. So my general tip would be invest into understanding your technology, invest into understanding your data, because while you were talking, and I fully agree and fully subscribe to absolutely every single point that you're saying, I was thinking about something that I have noticed so many times, and it's callbacks. A lot of organizations are offering callbacks, but to the point when a customer accepts that they are keeping their place in the queue and should be called back, well, the system might think this is abandoned. So what is it abandoned? Is it not? And people don't know, but it is going into some sort of calculations. So especially if you're using your callbacks quite often, you need to have a process. So I would say you should start from scratch, understand your process, understand your technology, and understand your people, how they're working. Is there agreements in place? What would serve them the best? Because, people are capable on overachieving if they're treated the right way. I feel like in a lot of times we're treating especially agents in contact centers like, I don't even want to go into that direction, but they should be there doing what we tell them to do, and they don't have a voice and they don't have a right to choice. And I resent it. I absolutely hate it with passion. And only if we give them the respect and the flexibility and we empower them to do their job, you would see how abandonment probably will go down.
Preach. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. I had a moment. Sorry, I had a moment. Yes, I believe this to my core, right? I always say this: without an employee experience strategy, your CX strategy is trash at best, lacking. Okay, and it's not because I know sometimes people are like, well, we can treat our employees the best, and they could still be not treating the customer well. Well, it's not. I believe, right, if you build people, people will build the business. It's just a fundamental, and I'm sure I've gotten that from somewhere because I read a lot of books, right? And I have a lot of people that I love, right? But I'm sure that might have been, I can't even remember who it is, but I'm sure I got that from somewhere. But if you build people, people will build the business. And so fundamentally, if you take care of people, people will show up. They will do their best. They will put their best foot forward every single time. Generally, when people are not showing up, there's lack somewhere. And it's your job as a leader to make sure that you cultivate an environment for growth. Now, I can't make you grow, right? I can't make you want better, but I can make sure that there's an environment there. And now ultimately the choice is yours. But don't get, this is not a leadership podcast or Tipsy Thursday. Okay, this is a workforce management expert interview. I love your tips. I absolutely love your tips. Look at your data. Make sure you have a process in place. Again, like you said, if you're offering callbacks, is that being calculated as an abandonment? And so it's really important that you understand your data, understand your processes, and understand what is what's going into the calculations. That's going to be super important, because many times we think we know because
Yes.
someone has told us that, oh, it's calculated like this, but you don't have access to the data. You don't have access to be able to see, and you're not pushing, you're not asking questions. So I have this mantra where I'm always saying, always be learning and always stay curious. And it's fundamentally a part of who I am, and I think has been one of the things that has opened so many doors for me, is because I'm always curious. I'm not asking why because I don't have nothing else to do. I'm asking why because I'm like, I want to understand how this works, and is there an opportunity to improve it, make it better, and impact the lives, positively impact the lives of people that is touching. So that's my soapbox. I love what you said. I love your insights on abandonment. I love the tips and strategies that you gave. Tell the people where they can find you.
They can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. They can reach out to me. They can DM me. They are my contacts being provided on my LinkedIn. I'm currently working on my website, so don't look for rightwfm.com because it's still in development. But go and find me on LinkedIn. I'm there and I'm going to respond. It might take me a bit of time, but I will respond.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being our expert guest this week. I really, really appreciate you coming to hang out with me for a little bit. And thank you so much for all the tips that you provided. Any other final thoughts that you want to offer the audience?
Yes, follow Juanita because she is absolutely incredible and she is so knowledgeable. And we desperately need people like that in the industry who are willing to help, who are willing to network, who are willing to provide tips and tricks, because not everything is a transaction. And she is proving that with those blogs and that contact. So follow Juanita.
All right, like that was so amazing. Listen, go and make sure that you follow Irena. She's at Right WFM. I'll make sure that I link her information in the blog, okay? Where, again, workforce management is such a huge conversation, and we can't do it justice in just 15 minutes, right? However, the goal with Tipsy Thursdays is to make sure that we give you just enough, give you enough to make sure that you're understanding what we're even talking about and why it's impactful to your organization and your role, and how it's making impacts inside of your customer experience, your employee engagement, and your business profitability. So hopefully you learned a little bit about abandonment, and how to look forward and how it makes impacts. So until next time, go be great and make impact. See y'all soon. Bye.